The message had been repeating for 17 years before Torin Vex finally traced it to its source. As a senior diplomat for the Confederation of Stellar Nations, he had watched 12 civilizations collapse into silence, their worlds transformed into hollow spheres of crystallized nothing. Each time, the dying sent the same desperate plea toward a small blue world that never answered. Torin's vessel emerged from hyperspace above a planet that should not exist in its current state. His sensors detected no orbital infrastructure, no satellite networks, no electromagnetic emissions beyond primitive atmospheric lightning. The sprawling megacities visible in century-old archives had vanished, replaced by scattered agricultural settlements connected by dirt roads. It was as if humanity had collectively decided to forget the stars entirely. His ship descended through layers of clouds toward a coastal region where thermal scans detected a single anomalous structure, a stone tower built on ancient foundation marks that matched pre-regression architectural databases. Someone here remembered. The tower's door opened before he could knock. A woman stood in the threshold, her hair silver despite appearing middle-aged, her eyes carrying the weight of forbidden knowledge. She wore simple woven clothing, but her hands bore the calluses of someone who had once operated complex machinery. "You're the 14th emissary," she said quietly, her voice carrying an accent that predated modern standard galactic. The others gave up and left. "You should do the same, Torin Vex of the Confederation." He startled at hearing his name. "How did you know?" "Because I still watch the skies, even though watching is forbidden here." She stepped aside, gesturing him into a circular room lined with hand-drawn star charts and mathematical equations carved into wooden panels. At the center sat a primitive telescope, its lens ground with extraordinary precision. "My name is Myra Castellan. I am the last astronomer of Earth, and I will tell you why your people will die alone." Torin's translator implant struggled with her archaic phrasing as she lit candles around the room. The warm light revealed something that made his blood freeze, a detailed mural covering the entire ceiling, depicting a world torn apart. Mars, according to the label, rendered in pigments mixed with what looked like Martian regolith. "We didn't achieve faster-than-light travel through innovation," Myra began, settling into a worn chair. "We ripped it from the fabric of reality itself. Our scientists thought they were creating a harmonic resonance drive. Instead, they opened a wound in spacetime that unmade an entire planet in microseconds. 4 billion souls erased. Not killed, Torin. Erased. As if they had never existed." She traced a finger along the mural, following the trajectory of desperate colony ships fleeing toward the outer system. The survivors thought they could escape. They jumped blindly into the dark, using the same cursed technology that murdered their homeworld. And that's when we found the ruins. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Every species that had ever reached for the stars and failed. Torin leaned forward, his diplomatic composure cracking. "The Void Shepherd. You found evidence of it." "Evidence?" Myra laughed bitterly. "We woke it up. The Mars rift acted like a dinner bell across dimensions. We scattered through the void and saw what was coming toward us, drawn by the scent of our cosmic violation. A presence so vast it existed between moments, feeding on civilizations that dared to break the light barrier. Your ancestors saw it too, Torin. Every species in your confederation knows the truth they hide behind treaties and trade routes. You're all prey animals waiting for the predator to notice you." Outside, the sound of village bells echoed across the valley, calling farmers to evening prayer. Myra stood and extinguished the candles one by one, speaking into the growing darkness. "Humanity's last scientists made a choice. The weapon we created to tear Mars apart could theoretically destroy the Shepherd itself. But the cost would be our sanity. Every simulation showed the same result. Whoever fired that weapon would understand, truly comprehend, what they had unmade. And that understanding would spread like a virus through our entire species. We would all become screaming voids wearing human skin." She opened a wooden chest and withdrew a crystalline data core, its surface etched with equations that seemed to shift when viewed directly. "So we chose forgetting. Engineered retroviruses that rewrote our neural pathways, cultural protocols that punished technological advancement, generations of deliberate regression. We buried the weapon in our collective unconscious and taught our children that the stars were just pretty lights with no meaning beyond beauty." Torin stared at the data core, understanding dawning with crushing weight. "The signals. The pleas for help. You heard all of them." "Every single one," Myra confirmed, tears streaming down her weathered face. "I hear them still, every night when I point my telescope at dying worlds and watch civilizations blink out. I am the keeper of humanity's shame, the lone witness to your extinction. And I cannot help you. Because the moment we remember how to save you, we will remember what we truly are. Not heroes, Torin. Monsters who broke the universe and chose cowardice over redemption. The Void Shepherd was coming. The galaxy was dying. And humanity's response remained what it had been for decades: ashes where Mars once orbited, and silence from a world that had chosen ignorance over damnation. Torin looked out the tower window at farmers tending fields under a sky they no longer understood, and realized the most terrifying truth of all. Earth hadn't abandoned the galaxy. Earth had abandoned itself to spare the galaxy from what humanity had become. Oren Blake had never questioned why the old languages were forbidden, or why metalworking beyond simple tools drew visits from the village elders. He tended his barley fields, honored the seasonal festivals, and taught his children to love the earth beneath their feet rather than the lights above their heads. Life was simple, predictable, safe. Until the morning he found a stranger standing in his field, staring at the soil with an expression of profound grief. The man was tall, thin, with skin that shimmered faintly in the dawn light, clearly not human. Oren had heard stories of sky demons in forbidden texts, but seeing one rendered those tales inadequate. The stranger turned, and Oren saw tears tracking down angular cheekbones. "Your ancestors engineered this soil," the stranger said in halting, accented speech. "Optimized bacterial colonies, nitrogen-fixing enhancements, drought-resistant substrate layering. This field alone represents biotechnology my civilization couldn't replicate in 1,000 years. And you think it's just dirt?" Oren gripped his wooden rake defensively. "I don't know what those words mean. Leave my land or I'll call the elders." "The elders can't help you. Nothing can." The stranger, Torin, he called himself, produced a small device that projected images into the air. Oren stumbled backward, dropping his rake as he witnessed impossibilities: towers reaching toward stars, vessels sailing through darkness, worlds spinning in an endless void. This was humanity 53 years ago. This is what you chose to forget. "Sorcery," Oren whispered, though something deeper than fear stirred in his chest. "Recognition. Longing. The elders say the forgetting sickness comes from looking at forbidden things. It's not sickness. It's programming." Torin advanced, desperation cracking his diplomatic facade. "Listen to me, Oren Blake. Your world sits in a pocket of space that something is converging upon. Something that has already consumed 12 civilizations in my lifetime. We sent you warnings, pleas, offers of alliance, 17 years of messages into your silence. And now it's too late for everyone except possibly Earth, because you possess the only weapon that might stop it." The images shifted, showing worlds transformed into geometric impossibilities, their matter reorganized according to alien mathematics that hurt to perceive. Oren's stomach churned as primal instinct screamed warnings his conscious mind couldn't process. "Why should I believe you? Why should anyone?" Torin's shoulders sagged. "Because I've spent 3 days here, and I've seen the evidence everywhere. Your harvest songs contain quantum mechanics equations. Your religious ceremonies map stellar drift patterns. Your children's games teach orbital mechanics through metaphor. You didn't forget, you buried your knowledge so deeply it became instinct. And now that instinct is screaming at you that I'm telling the truth." He was right. Oren felt it in his bones, in the way his eyes automatically calculated trajectories when he threw stones, in the strange dreams he'd always dismissed where he floated among impossible geometries. His grandmother used to wake screaming, clutching her head and begging the stars to stop talking. The elders said she'd been touched by madness. But what if it had been memory trying to surface? A sound pierced the morning air, not thunder, not wind, but something that resonated in frequencies the human ear shouldn't detect. Birds fell silent. Livestock huddled together, trembling. Oren looked up to see the sky rippling like water disturbed by something massive passing beneath its surface. Torin's device shrieked in alarm. "No. No, it's too soon. We're 3 systems away from..." He stared at his readings, confusion transforming into horror. It jumped. The Void Shepherd jumped trajectories. "It's coming here first." Across the village, people emerged from their homes, pointing at the sky as reality began to fracture. Geometric patterns spread across the clouds like cracks in glass, each one aligned to mathematical principles that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. Oren felt his mind bending, trying to process angles that connected points in impossible ways. Torin's device crackled with incoming transmission. A face appeared, another alien, this one reptilian, its scales dull with approaching death. Behind him, a world dissolved into crystalline fragments. "My name is Kelly's Thane," the dying scientist rasped. I am transmitting from the research station Viridian 9, currently being unmade by the entity your species awakened. I have spent my final hours calculating its trajectory, and I understand now why it altered course. It's not hunting the galaxy anymore. It's returning to its point of origin. To you. The transmission flickered as reality collapsed around Kelly's. You think forgetting protected you. But the shepherd doesn't feed on civilizations, humans. It feeds on the spaces between what things are and what they could become. Every child you bore carrying suppressed knowledge, every farmer solving equations they don't remember learning, you've been radiating potential across dimensions for half a century. You've been ringing the dinner bell louder than the Mars rift ever did. His image fragmented, geometry consuming flesh. With his last breath, Kelly's delivered his final message: you hid from your nature. Now your nature has attracted the thing you feared most. Remember what you are, humans. Remember, or let the cosmos die knowing you chose comfort over courage. The transmission ended in static. Oren watched the sky tear open like fabric, revealing something beyond that his eyes refused to focus on. Beside him, Torin fell to his knees, his hope extinguished. I came to awaken you, the diplomat whispered. I thought if I could make you remember, you might fight. But Kelly's was right. The shepherd isn't early. It's been circling you this entire time, growing fat on your collective unconscious. You didn't escape it. You've been feeding it all along. Around the village, people began to scream as ancient knowledge fought against mental locks, generations of genetic suppression failing simultaneously. Oren felt equations burning through his synapses, understanding flooding back in agonizing waves. He suddenly knew what the Mars rift had been, what it could still become. And he understood why his ancestors had chosen to forget. Because the weapon humanity created didn't just destroy targets. It destroyed the concept of existence itself for whoever wielded it. To use it meant becoming the void, thinking in antipatons, unmaking yourself at the most fundamental level. The sky fractured completely. The void shepherd descended. And deep beneath Earth's mantle, in a chamber no living human had visited in 50 years, something ancient and terrible began to wake. Myra Castellan felt the awakening through her bones before the seismic monitors registered it. The chamber. The weapon. The thing buried so deeply that even Earth's molten core had been redirected to seal it away. Now the planet itself was responding to the shepherd's presence, and the locks were failing. She found Oren Blake at the village center, surrounded by people clutching their heads as suppressed memories returned in cascading waves. Some wept. Others laughed with manic understanding. A few had simply collapsed, their minds unable to reconcile 50 years of pastoral existence with the sudden return of cosmic horror. You're the astronomer, Oren gasped, blood trickling from his nose as his brain rewired itself in real time. The one who stayed awake while we all slept. How did you bear it? Badly. Myra helped him to his feet, her hands steady despite the world ending above them. Every night for 53 years, I've watched civilizations die and done nothing. I became a monster through inaction. Now I get to become one through choice. The sky had stopped resembling sky entirely. The void shepherd manifested as an absence shaped like hunger, a conceptual hole in existence that grew larger by consuming the space around it. Villages at higher elevations were simply ceasing, their matter and meaning absorbed into UN reality. Torin stood at the edge of the dissolving world, broadcasting final observations to whatever remained of his civilization. It's beautiful in a way, the diplomat said numbly. I can see the mathematical elegance now. The shepherd doesn't kill. It reduces complexity to simplicity, organization to entropy. Its heat-death accelerated, the inevitable end of all things arriving early. Mars didn't die. Mars became cosmologically optimized. Myra grabbed his shoulder, forcing him to focus. The weapon. Tell me what your scientists know about it. Torin accessed his damaged device with shaking hands. The Mars rift was never meant to be a weapon. Your researchers were attempting controlled dimensional folding for faster-than-light travel. But the mathematics were wrong, intentionally wrong, we suspect. As if something wanted the experiment to fail in exactly that catastrophic way. The resulting breach created an inverse singularity that rejected existence itself. We became a cosmic immune response, Myra finished. Humanity accidentally created antibodies against reality. And the shepherd, being a manifestation of entropy, recognized us as an existential threat. More than that. Torin pulled up equations that made Myra's enhanced eyes water. Your weapon doesn't just destroy the shepherd. If deployed at sufficient scale, it would cascade across all of spacetime, undoing every instance of organized complexity. Stars, planets, thoughts, memories, everything would return to undifferentiated quantum foam. You would save the galaxy by erasing the concept of galaxies. Oren staggered over, his farmer's dialect replaced by the clipped precision of a recovered engineer. Then we don't deploy it. We let the shepherd finish its work. Better one species dies than all existence unmakes itself. That was our ancestors' conclusion, Myra agreed. Except they were wrong about something fundamental. Come with me. Both of you. Quickly. She led them to her tower as reality crumbled at their heels. The stone structure stood impossibly intact, its foundation extending deep into bedrock, deeper than any building should reach. Myra placed her palm against a wall, and ancient biometrics recognized her genetic signature. A seam appeared, revealing stairs descending into manufactured darkness. The weapon isn't in some distant vault, she explained as they descended past layers of engineered stone and metal. It's in us. Every human alive carries fragments of the Mars rift encoded in our DNA. The forgetting virus didn't suppress technology, it suppressed our ability to consciously access the weapon we had become. The stairs ended at a chamber lined with mirrors, thousands of them, each reflecting the group from impossible angles. At the center stood a simple pedestal holding a crystalline human skull. This belonged to Dr. Una Morricone, the physicist who designed the Mars experiment. In her final moments, as she realized what she'd unleashed, she did something extraordinary. She encoded the complete resonance pattern into her neural structure and then preserved her remains as a key. Every human born since carries a fragment of that pattern. Alone, we're harmless. Together, if we consciously synchronize, we become the weapon. Oren finished, horror and awe mixing in his expression. That's why the elders forbid gatherings larger than village size. Why cities were abandoned. Not just to prevent technology, but to prevent us from accidentally achieving critical mass. Torin's eyes widened with understanding. And the shepherd knows. That's why it came here first, before consuming the rest of the galaxy. It's not hunting you, it's trying to destroy you before you realize what you are. The tower shuddered as the dissolution wave approached. Through the mirrors, Myra could see multiple timelines collapsing, alternate versions of this moment where humanity chose differently. In some, they activated the weapon and became void. In others, they fled and watched the cosmos die. In a few, they did nothing and ceased to exist without ever making a choice. She turned to Oren. You represent what we became, intentional ignorance as survival strategy. And it worked. You lived 50 peaceful years because you chose not to know. I'm not going to take that from you by force. This has to be your decision. Oren looked at his hands, still calloused from working soil that shouldn't exist, grown from seeds engineered by people he'd deliberately forgotten. He thought of his children, taught to love the earth and fear the stars. What legacy would he leave them? The peace of extinction, or the agony of becoming something that unmade existence itself? There's a third option, he said slowly. The shepherd feeds on potential, on the gap between what is and what could be. What if we collapse that gap intentionally? Not by activating the weapon, but by accepting what we are without deploying it. Myra frowned. I don't understand. We spent 50 years pretending to be less than we were. What if we become exactly what we are, not weapons, not void, but witnesses? We remember everything. We acknowledge the horror. We stand here, fully conscious, and refuse to either fight or flee. We exist in perfect awareness of our nature without acting on it. Torin's translator struggled with the concept. You want to out-paradox a paradox? The shepherd exists as ontological contradiction. You're suggesting humanity becomes a greater contradiction. We already are, Oren replied, climbing onto the pedestal beside the skull. We're farmers who dream in quantum mathematics. Primitives who engineered our own regression. We're the species that chose to forget ourselves rather than destroy everything. That's more impossible than anything the shepherd represents. Myra understood. It was insane, illogical, and utterly human. Every human left alive. We need them to remember and refuse. Simultaneously. She activated emergency broadcast protocols buried in Earth's geological layers. Across the planet, in every mind carrying suppressed knowledge, a simple message resonated: remember, accept, remain. 700 million humans simultaneously recalled who and what they were. The psychic shock should have been catastrophic. Instead, something else happened. The void shepherd paused its consumption, its non-existence flickering with confusion. Before it stood a species that acknowledged its capacity for cosmic horror without succumbing to it. Humanity remembered the Mars Rift, understood they could deploy it, and chose not to. Not from fear. Not from mercy. But from the simple recognition that some choices unmake the chooser. In that moment, humanity became a paradox the shepherd couldn't process. Victims who refused victimhood, weapons that refused deployment, prey that neither fought nor fled. The entity withdrew, not in defeat but in confusion. Its logic, built on inevitability and entropy, encountered something illogical, free will exercised in full knowledge of consequences. Reality stabilized. The sky reformed. The dissolution reversed at the quantum level, though what had been lost remained lost. Torin stared at his readings in disbelief. It's leaving. Not destroyed, just departing. Looking for prey that makes sense. Myra climbed the tower stairs and emerged to see her village intact, her people standing in fields with tears streaming down their faces. They remembered everything now, the stars they'd abandoned, the civilizations they'd ignored, the weapon they still carried. And they would live with that knowledge. Forever. Oren joined her at the tower's peak, no longer a simple farmer but not quite the engineer he'd once been either. Something in between. Something new. The other species, he said quietly. The ones Kelly's mentioned. They're still dying. Yes. And we're going to watch it happen. Again. Yes. That's the price. We save ourselves by becoming witnesses to galactic extinction. Myra looked at the stars, finally visible again through clearing skies. Somewhere out there, civilizations were blinking out, their pleas for help still echoing across void. And Earth's response remained what it had always been. Not ashes and silence from cowardice. Ashes and silence from the terrible recognition that some rescues cost more than extinction. Humanity remembered what it was. And chose to be human anyway. The galaxy burned. Earth endured. And in the space between salvation and damnation, a species learned to live with the weight of conscious monstrosity, carrying a weapon they would never use while worlds died begging for its deployment. They had awakened. They had chosen. And the cosmos would never forgive them. But they would never forget themselves again.